If you don't follow the most important rule of screenwriting, you'll never be able to write a great screenplay. This has nothing to do with the rules you might be used to hearing. This is about how entertaining your story is. If you write the best dialogue, character arcs, and conflict in the world, but your story is boring, all that other stuff goes out the window because no one's going to pay attention to it. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to write a captivating screenplay and the biggest mistake most writers make when they write their scripts. Let's start with what actually makes a story boring. To understand this, think about real life and all the things you enjoy doing. Maybe it's riding a bike, cooking food, or reading a book, or maybe all these things just sound boring to you. And that's the point. There's no surefire way to make a story that's objectively entertaining, because you could argue that The Notebook is more boring than John Wick simply because one's a love story and one's an action thriller. But the truth of the matter is, even if it isn't you, there's probably somebody out there who absolutely loves melodramatic soap operas over fast-paced assassination thrillers, but they probably wouldn't be my plus one to a party. Just like there's no such thing as a good screenplay or a bad screenplay, there's no such thing as a boring screenplay or an exciting screenplay. So if there's no way to guarantee your story isn't boring, how are you supposed to avoid making it boring? The only reason you're trying so hard to follow all the rules is because you want to make sure that somebody else reads it and enjoys it. But this is not the way to go, and I'll show you why. First of all, like I said, there's no way to know. You could spend hours agonizing over amping up the stakes, mastering the pacing, and forcing in conflicts. But the fact is, even after doing all these things, you could still write a screenplay that no one is entertained by. So instead, it's simple. Don't write trying to please somebody else who might read it, because you don't know who's going to read it. You have no way of knowing what they're gonna like. But if you write something that you genuinely have fun writing, you guarantee that someone else out there will enjoy it too. Write what entertains you. Okay, Tucker, that's very easy to say, but if I want to sell my screenplay, I need to make it entertaining and marketable. Sure, of course. And my response to that is something that William Goldman talks about. What he says is that nobody knows anything. Not one person in the entire motion picture field knows for a certainty what's going to work. This is just to reiterate the point. You can't know what's marketable. If any of this is resonating with you and you're still watching, you're probably in the same boat so many of us have been in, where all you want to do is write an amazing screenplay that everybody loves and is so easy to sell. And it's okay. I get it, because I've been there too. We've all been there. If you're a writer, you've been there. But that very intention is exactly what's stopping you from doing it. If you're starting your script with the thought, how can I make this so good that I can sell it? You're backing yourself into a corner, because every time something happens that it just doesn't go your way and makes you doubt your ability, you're just gonna freeze up. You know, you're gonna question whether it's even worth writing this thing. Instead of seeing it through, you'll just decide that it isn't worth it. I don't want you to do that. So here's how to make sure that that doesn't happen to you. I was in the same exact boat as you are. You know, I was writing script after script, only getting halfway through the thing, or honestly, not even. Sometimes I wouldn't even make it through an outline. You know, I'd start out on this absolute rampage where words were just spilling out of me like nothing, and then I'd watch a really good movie or see some Reddit post about how hard the industry has become, and I'd get discouraged. I'd decide this wasn't it. You know, this wasn't the screenplay that was going to make it for me. And that would be it. You know, I'd file the script away and go hunting for the next big idea. But then I changed my mind. I decided I wasn't going to write something that I wanted to sell. I was just going to write the best story that I possibly could. And you know what? I did. After 7 years of giving up script after script after script, I wrote the best story that has ever come out of me. And because of it, I got the best feedback I've ever gotten. It was the first time someone said these words to me. I couldn't stop reading it. This was such an amazing feeling, and the only reason that it happened was because I stopped making my goal to please other people. When you do that, it's ironic because that's exactly what happens. When you're trying to write something that other people like, it sucks the parts out of it that are true to you, and your story gets lost. A client of mine was struggling with this also. She I think that she spent, I think it was actually 42 years just writing the beginnings of her drafts. But she'd decide not even halfway through that she didn't like them, and then she'd just always move on to something else, whether it was a book, a script, a play. But once we started working together, I helped her pick an idea that she was positive that she loved. And within a couple of weeks, she got further in the story than she had in decades of writer's block. Which reminds me, if you're a screenwriter who's struggling to get through your screenplay, click the link down below to work with me directly. Because when you write about what you just feel like writing, not only is it easier, but it's the best writing you'll ever do. So how do you write from this pure place that just naturally captures people? Change your intention. Stop making your goal to sell this thing and get it into the right producer's hands. I'm not saying you can't want to do that. You absolutely 100% should want to do that. But if that's what's fueling your work, it's going to suck the life out of it. Instead, just make your goal to write the best story you possibly can. I know I already said that, but it's important. Whatever that means to you, whether it's solid characters, a strong plot, great dialogue, whatever a great story means to you, write that. The most practical advice I can give you is just have fun with it. The whole point of watching a movie is to be entertained. So if you want to entertain someone else, you have to entertain yourself first. Because if you're genuinely entertained by your own story, again, you've guaranteed that at least one other person is going to enjoy it. Imagine the complete opposite of that. Imagine you hate every word of your own story and getting through it is like cleaning yourself with sandpaper. I don't know why that's the first analogy I thought of. If your own story feels that way to you, how do you think it's going to feel to somebody else? But I don't want to ignore the problem of marketability. Being able to do something with this thing. How do you write something that you love and combine it with what will actually be picked up in the industry? So my favorite kind of movie is like a 90s type character-driven drama, like Jerry Maguire or Good Will Hunting. It's when the movie is really just about the characters, but then the actual concept doesn't kick in until like 30 or 40 minutes. I was under the impression that these types of movies were just dead, that the studios and audiences aren't interested in seeing these types of movies anymore. And then The Holdovers came out. That's exactly what that movie is. It felt like a modern Dead Poet Society, because it's a slow burn, lighthearted drama movie that doesn't really have any high stakes or intense action. And yet it was nominated for 5 Oscars and made $50 million on a $13 million budget. If you want to write something that has a higher chance of selling, I get it. But there's a way to do that without sacrificing your integrity. The first thing to do is ask yourself, what kind of movie do I want to make? That's where you want to start before you do anything else. Do you want to write a high concept action thriller or a character-driven drama, maybe even a musical? Whatever it is, get very clear on it. Once you do that, look at the movies from the last 10 years in this genre that have been successful and just realize anything can happen. You might think to yourself, oh, well, I can't be too offensive or else studios won't want to work with me. But then you find out that The Sound of Freedom made $250 million despite being rejected multiple times for being too dark. This is my point. It doesn't matter what your story is about or how popular the concept is or even what genre it is. All that matters is that you truly love it. Because let's say you do go for the popular concept. You make this huge AI action thriller sci-fi that like the one that sold for $3 million by some unknown writer, but you hate it. Because you hate those kinds of movies. But you made it because you thought it would sell. Someone told you, oh, well, a sci-fi thriller is the best thing to write right now. What's going to happen when you get rejected by 5, 10, 50 studios? How easy is it going to be for you to give up on it? For you to decide, honestly, I don't even want to do this thing. But then say you write something that you just love. You pour your entire soul onto the page and you know exactly why you wrote it. It means so much to you that you could probably withstand 500 rejections and still keep going. That's what it's going to take to get your movie made. It's not about the box office appeal. It's about you truly being connected to your love for making this story. I mean, look at any of the greats. Whether you like them or not, Martin Scorsese, Quentin Tarantino, Christopher Nolan, they all make very different movies, but the one thing they have in common is their love for making these movies. When you watch one of their films, you can usually tell it's their movie just from how it feels. And that should be your goal, to write with a voice that's so unique that it's obvious that it's your movie just from the way you tell the story. Thing is, once you decide what to write about, the next thing that's going to stop you from finishing your screenplay, finding a producer, and actually getting it made is getting words down on the page. So to make sure you don't screw that up so that you can get your script across the finish line and get your movie made, watch this video next where I break down the entire process to go from an idea to a finished draft.